Have you ever been in a crowd and felt this energy? This just powerful wave that seems to take you over? A feeling that makes you do things, say things, feel things you normally wouldn't? Well, let's get into it because today we are diving deep into the weird and fascinating psychology of crowds. Eu vou chegar ao topo. I will get to the top. Again, I will get to the top. That right there, that's the sound of a motivational seminar. Hundreds of people, all chanting together, feeling like they're on top of the world, completely unstoppable. But what is really going on in that room? Is this real motivation? A genuine, life-altering turning point? Or is it something else? A very carefully constructed psychological state that's actually designed to switch off your critical thinking? That's the big question we're going to tackle. Okay, so to really understand what's happening in that seminar, we've got to zoom out for a second and look at the strange, almost hypnotic power that crowds have over every single one of us. And it's not just at these seminars. Think about it. A religious service, a political rally, even one of those corporate war cry events. Or how about a packed sports stadium, a music concert? In every single one of these places, something pretty profound is happening. People who are usually calm, rational, and independent can suddenly become euphoric, deeply emotional, and almost hive-minded. And here is the absolute key idea we need to grab onto. When you or I join a big group of people, our own personal, critical way of thinking, it just seems to fade into the background. It gets replaced by this single, collective mind that starts to think and feel all at once as one entity. This whole phenomenon actually has a name: collective hypnosis. Now hold on, this isn't about swinging pocket watches or magic tricks. No. This is a very real psychological state where an entire group of people is guided into the exact same emotional space at the exact same time, usually orchestrated by a leader up on a stage. So, how is this hypnotic state actually created? It's not an accident, I can tell you that. It turns out there's a very specific toolkit that gets used. So let's break down the anatomy of how it's all put together. Now just look at this toolkit for a second. What's kind of wild is how familiar all of this is, right? You've got the loud, epic music swelling up, the dramatic lighting, those repetitive chants and slogans, a super charismatic speaker. Put them all together and you've created an environment that's built for one thing and one thing only: to get every single person emotionally in sync. And this isn't just a feeling. Oh no, this is biology. This massive sensory bombardment literally triggers the release of dopamine and adrenaline in your brain. You feel a genuine rush, a high. You're in an altered state where you feel powerful, you feel connected, and you are absolutely sure that you can, in fact, get to the top. Now, all this might seem like some kind of new age modern thing, but it's not. The tactics that we see being used today are built on a psychological theory that is over a century old, which brings us to the mind of the mass. So, way back in 1895, this sociologist named Gustave Le Bon wrote a totally groundbreaking book called The Psychology of Crowds. In it, he laid out exactly how and why people change so dramatically in a group. And his ideas, well, they basically became the playbook, refined over decades by politicians, by advertisers, and today by motivational coaches and all sorts of public figures. Le Bon's central argument is this really fascinating contrast. Look at this. As an individual, you're guided by logic, by reason. But in a crowd, emotion and instinct take the wheel. Your critical thinking just shuts down. You become super suggestible. And that sense of personal responsibility you have, it just kind of melts away into the group. So if that's what happens to us in the crowd, how does a leader intentionally make it happen? Well, Le Bon laid out a very clear and simple playbook for influencing the masses. Le Bon identified 3 simple but crazy powerful tools. First, affirmation. You make these short, bold statements and present them as absolute fact. Think, you are a winner. No proof needed. Second, repetition. You just say it over and over and over again until it drills into the mind and becomes truth. And third, contagion. Once that emotion catches on with a few people, it just spreads like a virus until everyone is feeling the exact same thing. And this is precisely why it works so well. As Le Bon said, what really moves society isn't a logical, well-reasoned argument. It's powerful, shared beliefs. If you can shape the belief, you can steer the crowd. It's as simple as that. Okay, so I know this can all sound a little bit unsettling, but the goal here is not to be cynical. It's to be aware. So, how do you recognize this stuff and hold on to your own mind when you're in the middle of it all? So, when you feel yourself getting swept up, just realize you're making a trade, probably without even knowing it. You're trading your own individual reason for this big collective emotion. You're swapping your own conscious thought for that powerful, warm feeling of belonging. And you're replacing quiet reflection with loud, endless repetition. Just recognizing that trade is a huge first step. And this next point is so important. A lot of people feel like there's something wrong with them if they don't get swept away with everyone else. They start to doubt their own faith or their commitment. But what if that little bit of distance, that nagging voice of doubt, what if it isn't a weakness at all? What if it's actually a superpower? It's your critical mind saying, hey, I'm still online. So the goal here isn't to make you scared of crowds or to tell you never to go to a concert again. Not at all. It's about making you aware of the mechanics that are at play. Because simply understanding how this whole thing works is the single greatest defense you have against being manipulated without you even realizing it. So, I want to leave you with a question to think about. When have you felt that pull? That powerful urge to just let go and join in with everyone else? And, maybe more importantly, when have you felt that little flicker of resistance? That voice that told you to take a step back and just think. You know, we live in an age where these digital crowds and mass movements can pop up in an instant, and the pressure to conform, to just go along with it, is immense. But maybe, just maybe, the most important thing we can do is hold on to our own minds. Because in a world that is constantly pushing for us to join in, choosing to think for yourself, well, that is a true act of courage.